Welcome to Moment Talk. I'm your host, Shi Samoa, and joining us, Mai Tao, my co-host. Our guest is a father, a husband. He got his degree in bachelor's and master's in linguistics from CSU Fresno. After graduating, he's been working there for 20 years. He is an outreach counselor at CSU Fresno. A lot of the listeners on here know him as a singer because I grew up listening to his iconic song. Just to name a few, I'm in Love, Okutu, and Belisa. It's been slightly over a decade, but 3 years ago, he came back to make a song dedicated to his son. It's called Gamebo Shoa. Let's all welcome him, Pong Yang from Paradise Band. But first, let's thank our sponsors. Today's sponsor is brought to you by She Sells Menswear. Are you looking for the latest trendy men's fashion? Look no further. She Sells Menswear carries handcrafted bow ties, suit accessories, and everyday streetwear. They are your one-stop mall-inspired men's shop. You can search them online at www.xixomenswear.com. Now let's get back to the show. We are super excited. It's a beautiful day here. Me and my good old co-host Maya is on. Guess who? A legendary boy band, Pong Yang. Pong, how's it going, man?
I'm doing great. How about you guys?
Wonderful.
Awesome.
And it's Pong from Paradise, the wonderful, famous Paradise Band. And if you were born in the 90s, you definitely know who he is.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here and talking to the two of you.
Thank you for coming on.
I am just seeing Better Lisa on top of my lungs right now. If it was karaoke tonight.
Well, that brings memories for sure.
Oh, we're going to talk about that. And in this first half, we're going to talk about your career path. But more importantly, I wanted to say is, Pong, can you tell the audience and the listener one thing we do not know about you?
Well, one thing you may not know about me is that I grew up in 3 different continents. So maybe you knew that I spoke French, but you didn't know that I grew up in 3 different continents. Actually, I was born in Asia. I was raised in Europe, and then now I'm here in the United States.
How long did you live in Europe, Pong?
I lived there for a period of almost 10 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you're really fluent in French.
That was almost my my primary language, if you want to say it. Yep.
Okay.
You've been married for about 20 years, 25 years with your beautiful wife, Misty, and kids and daughter and son. You have a beautiful family, Pong.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a wonderful journey.
Some of your music is iconic, and I grew up, especially me and Mai, we're in the 90s kids. We definitely grew up listening to your song. And some that comes off of my head is just like I'm in Love, Shooting Star, or Kuluka. I mean, just to name a few, and it just rolls on top of my tongue. What made you inspired to write those kind of songs? Please elaborate on that.
Well, during that time, I think that we were young. I mean, we were college kids, and a lot of our influence at that time came from being a college student. I think the time where you fall in love, the time where you find you have your first romance, the time when you get your heartaches and things like that. And I think a lot of that came from that side. So what you could tell from our lyrics is that they're very, very much love oriented. And it symbolized what kids go through. I mean, I look at my own kids today, and they go through the same thing, just a different time of different generation. But I see myself in them going through college, having that college experience, having growing into young adults, and going through a relationship. And they go through the same experience. They might express it in a different way, but at that time, for me, was really expressing it through the art of music. So that's the inspiration. Yeah.
I see, and that's why, like, for example, your song Like a Shooting Star, that was your daughter, correct?
Yes. Yeah, we waited a long time, to have kids. I mean, we were married, and we didn't have kids until almost 4 or 5 years after. And then we have our first born was a boy, and then our second came a year later, and then it was Grace, and she was a beautiful girl, and I just felt that I have that soft side in me, of course, for a daughter. most dads do. And when she came, I was like, man, she was so beautiful. I had to write something for to almost memorialize that experience for me.
With that being said, your songs are about your experience, your own personal passion, or yourself in your experience. And that also brings the latest song that was launched about, say, 17 years now, Game Boy Shua, and that was about your son too, right?
Yes. I wrote one for my son Ryan, who graduated from high school at that time. And I think as a father, you there are lots of things that you do for your kids, but I wanted to leave him something that it's really from me, from my heart, to encourage him, to give him that sense of feeling that he will become somebody, and that he is somebody to me, and that he can accomplish anything he wants in life. So that I wanted to give him something that could last through the ages. Yeah. So I think for me it's music, because especially with social media now, you can always go back and listen to it.
It only
Right.
inspires him. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, how did your daughter and your son influence you or inspire you to write those songs, Pong? I think it's so very memorable and loving and inspiring to always hear parents leave something behind for the kids. In your sense, is through music. Are your kids aware of how famous you are in the Hmong community as far as music goes, and how did they inspire you, influence you to even write those music and dedicate to them?
Well, those are really good questions, actually. My kids, I think they just see me as dad first. They don't see me as a celebrity. Although sometimes when you run into people and they're giving me the eye, like, what are those people? They always want to get close to you and take pictures with you. Come on, dad. You're not that cool.
Right.
I'm always going to be dad first. But they grew up with me around music. They sacrificed a lot, or we sacrificed them for my love of music initially, because they grew up, and during that time was when Paradise was really moving up in the industry, and our time was consumed with the music. I mean, every single weekend, every night was writing music and playing music, and the kids really suffered. I thought, that time. Now I look back, it's like, was I being too selfish? All the birthdays were scheduled around my band practices, so they are the fabrics of who I am. I think they made me into the man I am, or the father that I am. And that's why for me, I am not too much of a, some people are really good at giving lecture or advices to their kids to become great adults, individuals. And I'm not really good at that. Actually, what I use is more of lyrics and poetry. And I believe that, one song can make a big difference to anyone, because depending on the situation that you're in, it could mean something different to everyone. So although I'm writing it for my kids, I'm hoping that other people are listening to it and it has a different meaning for them. But they have been instrumental in my life. And when I think about my kids, is I wouldn't be anything without them. And especially, we have only 3 kids. So I see them growing up too fast, and I'm seeing them almost escaping from me as a dad. And, I want to remember those moments. So the music is for me, it's not just for them, but when I listen to the same song, like 2-3 years down the line, I go, wow, I still remember that feeling I had when my son graduated or when my daughter was born. I knew exactly how I felt at that time.
Well, that's beautiful. I love what you just said. You said they're the fabric of your life. That's definitely like a tweet moment. So thank you for that. I will share that on Facebook, actually. I'll be like, it's from Pong, Paradise Band.
I love it, man. I love it. So again, your song again, with a Shooting Star for your daughter, and Game Boy Show with your son, and you wrote a song on when you and your wife met and got married too. And,
yes.
But now here's the real question I was going to ask you. So, Pong, who's the mistress, Betta Lisa? Misty's gonna be pissed. Do tell. Who's Betta Lisa, bro?
Well, she actually is nobody, but yeah, we had to pick a name that really fits the song. So, you know, it was a combination. You know, I think it was like we're trying to incorporate as much of our cultural background as possible, and you know, some of my background is French, so Belle is definitely the French part, and Lisa, I think at that time, I don't know why, because Lisa seemed to be a I don't know, like a really popular name during the early '90s. So we're like,
I
well,
would
okay,
agree.
yeah, right. I mean, I just
Yeah.
heard around a lot. So
I mean, not like this is recorded. We don't know who Lisa's or your mistress. It's none of my business. It's not recorded anyhow, right?
I assure you and everyone that there's nothing.
Oh, how did your band come together anyway, Pong? I mean, was it just you? Did you just go and pick anybody off the streets, or at church, or at school, or were you guys like friends that came together?
Well, I think a little bit of both is it started as best friends and families for sure. Myself, one of my best friends in high school, and then my brothers came in, and then out of that, you know, it was like uh, people who knew people. So it's actually band members who knew other family members. So it was always our connection has always been the family. We came from the family, from forming the band through being family or being relatives, and I think that's why we stuck around so long, because I mean, once you're family, you can't go anywhere else.
Right,
If you're gonna do a
right.
weekend, just each other, so might as well play music.
That's right. That's awesome, though.
Yeah, that's cool, because you know, sometimes as musicians, as we grow up, I see bands out there, and then they come around, and then a couple of years down the line, they are no longer together, and it's unfortunate. But as families, is that you can always have your disagreements, and you could have you as musicians, sometimes we don't see eye to eye because we have different styles and different, you know, influences. But in the end, you know, you're still family, so you come to some sort of uh, consensus, and you meet in the middle.
Yeah, that's true. Did you guys write the Game Boy Shuo, your latest song together too? Or was that something that was solely you?
It was mostly me. I mean, of course, the musicians had an influence on it because they
Right.
played music. I wrote the song, and I brought them in, and they did the compositions. They did the arrangements. So it was the teamwork. Yeah, but that is a new paradise, of course, because we've gone through many members or many renditions of the band, and that was the latest version of Paradise.
That's cool. And I
Awesome. I
do
love it.
notice like there's a change in your style too. Like we were talking about before, you guys were known as, you know, a very romantic, there was mellow tones to it. But the last song, Game Boy Shuo, I noticed there's a little bit of a alternative rock. It's a good
Well,
twist.
yes, it was like you do with what you have in terms of, because we have different influences, and of course, I mean, it's been like 14 years since we wrote our last songs,
Really?
right?
Can you believe it?
Yeah, so
Oh my
14 years.
goodness.
That was Shooting Stars, right? So Shooting Star, and then the Game Boy Show came like 14 years later, and a lot of things change in life. You know, your influence changes, the way that you perceive music changes. Not necessarily that the old Paradise was bad. It's just that a lot of things happen, and just like anything, it's like clothes change and car changes,
Right.
and so music changed. And so, you know, it doesn't mean that I don't have what we used to have before. It's just that for that particular song, I specifically uh, wanted that genre, because one is my son, he likes that kind of style. So
Mm.
I want to write something that he'd want to listen to, not like, you know, hip hop or other things, or you know, boy band type of things, because they're not into that kind of stuff. So it has its own strategy, I want to say.
I think that's beautiful. I think it's it's so telling that music, it evolves just like everything else. And
It
music is
does.
really, it's really a universal language that speaks to anybody, whoever it is that you're writing the song to, no matter the style, no matter what generation. So that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would hope that, you know, nowadays that our audience or our listeners are paying attention a lot more to, you know, more of the messages and the lyrics. Besides the style, you know, the style is good, but also I want them to absorb the.
So, Pong, when you were starting Paradise and such, I mean, what why and what made you describe to pursue in that career at that age in the music industry?
Well, it was accidental. I think it wasn't so much something that was planned. It was that it was a cool thing to do. I mean, during that time, you had really really popular bands out there. I mean, and I've seen many of them perform. If I mention some names, people might not remember or might not know them because maybe there's not their generation. But you have big bands like Gangova, well, from the East Coast, right? Really,
Oh
really
yeah,
popular.
love them, love them.
Yeah, love them, love their music, and they're still iconic for me. You have bands like Zhongli, California band, right? You have Dulivaku, of course, really big icon, even especially in Europe. I mean, that's Dulivaku was for me was like back in France was my idea of what Hmong music should be eventually. Very modern for that time in the 80s. So when I came here, I just saw all these bands and things that I felt that wow, these guys are really good, and like then you have Voltage that came right before us, right, and they were like super popular. I went to their concerts, and during that time they were called parties, but whatever it is, they were still performing live. And I just like, man, I wish I could be like that one day, but with no training or background in music at all. I didn't even know I could play, I could sing, I could do anything. So it was more accidental. It was high school senior year, and one of my buddies and I was like, okay, you know what? Let's learn to play guitar. Okay, guitar. All right, why the guitar? Okay, and I just picked up my first guitar, and from there the band started. So it was accidental, but definitely the love was there for sure. The passion for music was there.
Were you surprised at all of how it blew up?
Yes, because I never knew that it could become Paradise. It didn't start as a band. It started as two individuals just messing around with some guitars and some chords. That's it. Trying to kill time.
Wow.
That's awesome. What has been the best performance of your career so far?
The best performance of my career that's a tough question because I think every concert that we've done, there's at least one memorable experience in the concert. But I want to say the best one, maybe the one that I remember the most, would have been the one that we did in Wisconsin, and it was during Labor Day. I believe that for that particular event was we actually first off what we did in the Brown Arena, which was like a massive place, right? I think that place holds almost like 7,000 people or something like that. It was the biggest place that we played at, and it was the biggest arena for sure for us, and it was packed. That place was packed. That was the year that I was like, wow, so more people can sell out a show, and it could be massive, And so it definitely left like something for me to remember. I was like, okay, Hmong music can go somewhere if if the right combination of things happen. So yep.
What year was that?
It was around maybe 3 years before we actually left the music scene. So it would have been around 2002. Yeah, maybe around 2000, between 2000, around 2002, I want to say.
Okay, I just can't believe it's been that long. Wow.
It's been very long. And I remember actually during that event, what I remember is that we celebrated my birthday because the event in Wisconsin, actually Labor Day is that the Labor Day weekend? Yeah. Well, it was the September festival that they have there.
Oh yes, yep.
We have it every year in September, right? Mm-hmm. So that's where we perform, and my birthday is right at the beginning of the September. So they even sing happy birthday, like the whole 5,000-6,000 people sing happy birthday to me on stage at that time. That's how I remember it.
Wow, that's gonna be really really cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Lastly, I wanted to ask you, as a pioneer, a beginner of a boy band, what do you see of today's industry in the music, in the Hmong music industry?
Well, I see that within my lifetime, I will see a Hmong artist break through to mainstream. That's how I see music. In the 80s and 90s, that would not have been conceivable. But nowadays, with the reach that our music can have through the type of media that we have, I mean, just like what you're doing right now, is that it's going to allow some of our artists to be really, really exposed to other people, not just in the U.S. but also worldwide. And I think that within my lifetime, I'm going to see at least one individual who is going to break it through to the mainstream. And I think that's going to be the epitome of me as an artist. I mean, I want to see that before my days are gone. I hope I see that.
And I think we will. I think we definitely will.
I have no doubt. I have no doubt.
Yes. Yeah.
For you young listeners or who are musicians that are upcoming artists doing it, well, you have your prayers from Palm himself.
And you have my full support. That's
and
the
full
most
support too.
Yeah.
Let's fast forward to 2020 now. You got your bachelor and your master's in linguistics from Fresno State. You went to school there, and now you work for Fresno State as a counselor, and then now into a outreach administrator now.
Mm-hmm.
And let's fast forward to this day. I mean, you've been married for what, 25 years now? A beautiful wife.
Mm-hmm. 25.
Let's talk about your career now as a teacher. I mean, why did you just pursue? What was the turning point? Why not just continue music? And now you are as an outreach administrator.
Well, I chose my career because somebody made a difference in my life. I think that most people, if you ask them about why they chose to do what they do, it's because they probably had an experience that was life-changing. For me, it was in high school, coming out of high school, not knowing what to do, first generation, parents just farming in Fresno and not being able to, provide guidance to the kids. Is somebody actually who is not even Asian and said, "Hey, you want to go to college?" And I said, "Yes." My parents want me to go to college. Of course, they don't want me. They don't want me to farm. They want me to go to college, but I have no idea. I didn't even fill out an application, and I was a senior already. And he took the time. He was my counselor, my guidance counselor, and he just filled out the application for Fresno State. I didn't even know it. He said, "I already filled out the application for you. You're just gonna go the fall." I go, "Wow, Fresno State, where's that?" And he goes, "Well, yeah, it's down the street, Well, that's how I ended up there. And from that point on, my life changed. And on top of that, Fresno State gave me everything I have in my life. I mean, I met my wife there. I got my degrees there. I got my, then I ended up giving back by working for Fresno State. And both of my kids are going to Fresno State right now. So it's become almost like a tradition. I must say Fresno State is, for us, we have legacy with the campus. And that's why, I want to, spend the rest of my career there if I can, for sure, and giving back. And I want to be that point of contact, or that difference maker in case. I mean, you can't always be the person who makes a difference in everybody's life, but sometimes there's that one person who comes to you and they have nowhere else to turn. And what you do could make that difference for them. And I want to be that if that time comes. So that's why I'm doing what I do.
Well, I think it's so important to stress that, Palm, because I think a lot of people, when they think about a role model or a guidance, they always think it has to be their mom or their dad or a sibling or a family member. And it's so important that you stress that, because a role model could be anybody out there that just looks out for you and wants the best for you. And in your case, was a counselor. And like for example, from my son, he's in college now, but he still doesn't know what he wants to do. Just like how you were and how I was. But it's so important for everybody to hear that, especially those who grew up in a broken family with a missing parent. It's so important for them to hear that, it doesn't have to be somebody that's in your family. It could be anybody out there that has your best interest in mind.
That's correct. And, we can't assume that just because we've been here for almost 50 years now, that we're all okay, and that we all educated, and all kids are like our kids now, right? And, because I work at the university and I've been there for, almost 20 years now. And every time students come to campus and they're starting their educational pathways or journey there, and you ask them out of the whole group, the 100 people the 100 kids that you see there, and you ask them, how many of you you're going to be the first one to go to college? And you're going to see that at least 6 or 7 out of 10 raise their hand. I'm like, what? And we've been here for so long, and you still kids I still see kids just like me coming through college. So it's not that, okay, we're done, that generation is over now, so our kids are going to college. It's not, no. There's the community remains similar to what we used to be back in the 80s. And so the support needs to be there still for them. So you're correct. I mean, it's a never ending cycle. I think you have to be there. You have to be willing to provide that support.
Right. That's true.
Now, with that being said, let's just say, for what you do as a profession now, let's just say me as myself going to school, got out of high school, going to University of Fresno. I come to you as a counselor and it's like, hey, Pong, I don't know where I want to head my direction. Where would you tell this Hmong kid? Okay, he doesn't know where he's heading to. What kind of advice would you give him?
Well, definitely one of the things I would encourage students to do is to do a career assessment. Because sometimes what you're good at in school may not be what you're loving to do. Some kids are really good at everything, so then they also now have the struggle of like, what do I choose? I'm good in math, I'm good in English, I'm good in everything, science, and I don't know what to choose. So really a career assessment is essential. I think most high schools offer that. If not, most universities offer that for sure, if not all for that. So I would say, get a career assessment done, because that will tell you what your strengths or what your values are. More importantly, for me, it's talking to a student is about their value. Because if they want to make a lot of money, well, when you make a lot of money, it doesn't mean, but you love being around people, that might not, those two things might not go together. Because if you become for example, a kid will say, well, I want to be a millionaire, right? Most kids must come to me.
I hear that a lot.
Yeah, I just want, whatever it is, I don't care. I just want to make a lot of money. And I goes, well, what does a lot of money mean to you? It's like, I want to make $1 million a year. Okay. And then what do you want to do? Well, I want to be a teacher. Those two things don't go together. You won't make $1 million being a teacher. So then we need to really go to the drawing board and say, what are your values? Is your value really to make money, or is your value really to help people? Because those two need to go together, right, hand in hand. And sometimes it's really talking to the kids to understand what it means, because sometimes they don't know what they want. They do know that they want to make money because everything costs in life. You have to pay for life. But sometimes when they discover what their true values are, or their true love is, it might not be that they may be content not making that much money, but their life will be so enriched by it that they're happy with it. So it's really finding that line, and unless you have a really deep conversation with a student, it's really hard to do to find out.
It's important to know that, though. It's important to hear what you just said, about defining your values and defining your career. What is your value? Because that really, at the end of the day, that is really what defines your true joy and your true happiness. Would you agree?
Yes. Like, I'll give you an example. I mean, I'll use my own kids as example, because no, they can't say anything about me. So, like,
they're gonna thank you later.
My daughter graduated like just this past year. This is her first year at Fresno State. And, I'm super proud of her. She was a valedictorian of one of the top schools here in the city of Clovis. And I told her, she was so good in math. She was so good in English, right? She did all these APs, and she's like, wow, you're going to graduate a whole year ahead of everyone else when you go to college. And I asked her, typical Hmong parents. I swear that I told my wife I will never be like my parents, but I'm just like them too. I'll tell my daughter, well, you should consider being a physician, because you're.
Oh no, you went there.
Yes, I did. I was like, Phong, don't ever do that. But I can resist. I don't know. So my parents I guess, too long on me. But I told her, you should consider become a doctor, Grace, because you got all the skills to do it. You got the talent, you got the smarts and everything. And she said, well, no, I don't want to be a doctor. First of all, I'm afraid of blood. I can't be a doctor. Two, I just want to help people, and I want to do something else. And she wants to do psychology, right? So I said, well, psychology, do you think there's going to be a lot of jobs for psychologists, and you have to get at least, eventually you're going to have to get a PhD in psychology if you want a good job. And she goes, yeah, I'll do that. But that's what I want to do. I want to help people like that. I don't want to help people the other way. And yeah, you might not make as much money as a physician will make, but for her, that's what's driving her. And she really, really loves that area. So, as parents, you have to, the counselor I have to like bring the counselor back in me and say, okay, you know what? It is her inspiration. Her values are not there. She's not about making money or driving a nice car, having a big house. Her value is to help people. And that's how she wants to help people. So, you got to accept it and just gear them up, prepare them for that.
It must be hard when to have the dad come out and when to have the counselor come out when talking to your kids.
I gotta watch myself sometimes.
Well, it seems like you're doing a great job.
Thank you. I'm doing the best I can.
With that being said, Ryan is graduating, and he's going to be graduating pretty soon here.
In 1 year, yeah, he'll be done spring of 2021, or already.
So you're saying there's be another song coming out? Yeah. No claims. Okay. One thing I wanted to bring up too is you were part of a translator for Google. Am I right?
Microsoft, actually.
Microsoft.
Yes.
And this back about early 2010. Did that come about?
2012, yes. And it's up and running. It's part of the Microsoft translator. I mean, it's in there. If you use Bing, I mean, it's kind of like a translator for websites and things like that. It's available. What the most important thing that came out of that project is recognizing Hmong as a language, and not just a language, but as a supported language by a company such as Microsoft Research at that time. But now, because once the translator is built, then in Word document you could do translation. So it's supported. Once it's supported, it's one of the languages that you can translate back and forth from in any tools that Microsoft has. So, I think that's one of the things I'm the most proud of. My wife always tells me, Phong, what did you ever go into linguistics for? There's no job for that. And I could say, well, I helped build the first Hmong translator. And now everybody can use it if they want to. I mean, it's by no means perfect, because machine translation is very, very challenging. And it's based on how many people use it and how many people actually improve it. But at least it's there. It's a starting point. It's not going to go away. It's gonna exist until there's no more Microsoft, I want to say.
Now, does it work? Have you ever used Google Translate?
Yeah, it came after.
Does it work the same way as that?
Similar. It's similar. It's just like that. You can go online and you can just type some words and so forth, and it's the same thing. But I want to say the Microsoft one did come first.
Okay.
It came on, I think, almost a year and a half before Google came out with us.
I see. Well, I know where to send my kids to now. If they are ever wondering, like, Mom, lalo na mini kya na? Go to Microsoft.
Yeah. Either way, yeah.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you so much for that. Why did you feel it was important to have that? I know that preserving our Hmong language was important to you, but why was it started?
Well, it started because of relationship. I think, like most things in life, things start with relationship. The person who was at that time working with Microsoft Research was one of my former professors at Fresno State in the linguistics department. And he got picked up by Microsoft a couple years prior, and then he became a researcher up in Washington. And he contacted me one day and said, "Phong, are you still studying? Are you still doing Hmong?" Because when I went to linguistics, my area was Hmong, right? I want to study my language, which was very what was under study at that time. And he said, I'm looking for language that are at risk of being extinct, which Hmong could be in the United States. I mean, it's live and well in other countries, but in the United States, typically when your kids stop learning a language, that's when you know that a language could go extinct, right? Because they don't speak, then their kids are not going to speak anymore. So a language could go extinct in particular part of the world, not necessarily the whole world, but just an area. So he said, well, Hmong would be a great candidate for that. And I said, yes, why not? You should pick Hmong because you and I, we're friends. Come on. So he talked to Microsoft Research, and then they invested quite a bit of money into the project, coming down to Fresno, doing the research with me, and then the whole getting people on board. We got a community. It wasn't just me. I don't want to take the credit for myself. It's a whole community, because yes, I was there with the researcher, but we brought on a whole team from Microsoft, and we also brought a whole community from the Hmong community to help, like Hmong teachers, Hmong elders, Hmong educators from all around different areas to come and actually help implement, develop the translation, and then testing it and enhancing it. And so it took about a couple of years to get it done, but we got it done, and it was just the help from everybody to make that happen.
And I assume nowadays people are still using it, especially students.
Yes, it's being used. It's being used because there's the Microsoft one is actually unique in a way where you could actually put it on your website, any website that you visit, I think, and then you actually could translate the whole website into like Hmong if you wanted to, for example, or any other languages that you can actually do. It's using it's the Bing bar that they use, and you could switch between languages. So like a lot of school districts use it because they put on their website, districts that have a lot of Hmong parents, I want to say, and then you could flip between different languages.
Oh, how awesome is that? Well, thank you and your team for bringing that forward.
You're welcome. It was fun. I was telling my wife, it made my whole master's. It validates what I went into linguistics for. Just that one project.
Now, do you and your wife speak a lot of Hmong at home, or is it primarily English at home?
It's primarily English. I mean, yeah, I know that I'm in linguistics, and I'm trying to do Hmong preservation. Look at me. I don't even use Hmong with my kids. It's just so challenging. I think it's just not me, but I don't know about you guys. I don't know if you guys use Hmong, but my kids.
I try.
Yeah, my kids, it's hard because, especially if you don't have parents living with you, then it's just really hard because it's so easy to fall back on the English part. I mean, yeah, I'm guilty of that.
I am too.
Phong, it is amazing what you have done as a pioneer and being a boy band and being part of the translator for Microsoft. I look forward to seeing more projects coming out from you in the future.
Yeah, let's see.
Anything hidden? We don't know. A teaser, maybe? Nothing?
Not as of right now. I mean, there's some music stuff that I'm working on, but other than that, in terms of like on the academic side, I'm fully invested into being trying to get more kids into college and making sure that they make it. That's the most important thing right now. Is we got to build a future.
That's right.
I love it.
Build our future. I think we don't say that enough to our kids. Build your future. Social media doesn't do it for you.
No, yeah.
A few more questions is going to end this. But Phong, what does it mean to be a Hmong man?
To be a Hmong man. Wow, that's $1 million question that you asked.
There's no right or wrong. Yep.
No. If I knew the answer, I wouldn't. I think whether it's Hmong man or other man, I think I want to. Maybe I'll answer it as what is it to be a man overall. I think and I think being a man is being If you ask me that question back in the days when I was single, I think the answer would be different. But if you now that I have kids, a family, I think it's being a man is number one. Being a good father and a good husband, the best that you can be, more than anything. I mean, nobody can be the best, but I think it's you have to try to be the best that you can be as an individual with the time that you have on this earth. And if you can do that, then I think that you would have answered the question, the $1,000,000 question, because for everyone is just going to be different. But for me, it's just trying to be the best husband I can be, the best father I can be to my kids, the best brother I could be to my siblings. To whoever out there who sees me as their role model, it's for me not to disappoint them, is to do everything in my power to make sure that I maintain, that consistency for them, so that when things are not going well for them, is that when they look at me, they go, well, yeah, there's hope, because there's people like Phong. And so that's the only thing I could tell you. I think that there's no $1,000,000 answer, I guess, to this question. It's just a hard question, but it's going to be different from everyone. So for me, that is my answer. Yeah.
Is that the legacy you want to leave, Phong? Is for you to have that kind of legacy where people remember you as someone who was caring, loving, great father, great human?
Mm-hmm. I think that's the one thing I want to leave. Not that I had a good job, not that I did the Microsoft translator, because all of that people will forget eventually. But being the person I am for my family and for my community, I think that's what I want to leave behind. Is that I want people to remember that he did try his best to change himself, his family, and his community. And this is how he tried to do it, through all the little things that we talked about, through writing music, through doing some, contributing back in terms of research, to do a lot of community events. I mean, my wife and I, our weekends are busier than our weekdays, and it's because we're so involved in the community. But we can't say no. It's hard to say no, because when they reach out to you, just like you guys reach out to me, right? I mean, I don't want to say no, because it doesn't really cost me anything to do this. I'm just sitting here, just talking to people, right? It's not like I have to go travel across the world to make this happen. So for me, little things like that are act of kindness, and I want people to just remember those things.
We are humbled. Lastly, I wanted to ask you, Phong, is can you give an advice for the younger 16-year-old Phong, and this could relate to a younger generation and a younger, give us advice to yourself, to whether they're going to be